Hey everyone, it's the Gridiron Geek, and I'm coming at you with my review for the Black Mirror first episode of Season 4 review, entitled USS Callister. This one is a long-awaited one. Believe me, I am a huge fan of Black Mirror, and I could not wait to get my hands on this. Seeing some of the promo art for it, it looks like the old Star Trek, so I didn't really know what to make of it. It doesn't seem to really fit in the Black Mirror universe, but as you get into it, you start seeing, okay, this is where we're at. So the quick plot rundown, the episode follows Robert Daly, who's a reclusive but gifted programmer and the co-founder of this huge MMORPG, who's kind of salty that he's not getting the recognition from his co-workers. He starts taking out his frustrations by simulating the Star Trek-like space adventures in his game using a special mod, and he takes his co-workers' DNA to create digital clones of him. And, they're not captain. He's captain of the ship, so he's the captain, and he can do whatever the hell he wants. And believe me, he shows that real quick. And he gets this new girl in the office, likes her quite a bit, wants to bring her into the game. You start realizing, these people can understand that they're in a game. It had some similar things. I like seeing the connections between all the Black Mirror episodes. They're usually real slight, but they are there. When he comes out of the game, he has these electrodes on the side of his head, kind of like that episode that we got last season called Playtest, which was really one of my favorite episodes from that season. So it was really neat to see, there's similar connection there. However, this one seemed to be an all-American cast, which is definitely a contradiction of what most of Black Mirror is. Most of it takes place with British cast, so it was kind of interesting to see that angle. This season I've seen so far, they've definitely got more references. He's talking about his collection of Space Fleet, which is the show that he used to love, which he based his mod on. And he had them all on VHS and Blu-ray, and I think they're even streaming on Netflix. And I'm like, way to mention that. And the main dude, I don't know if you guys have seen him. This dude is like if Ben Affleck never met Matt Damon, and Matt Damon was never successful, and he just started losing his hair gradually, because that hairline looked like LeBron James on the sides. And so it's hard for me to not sit there and just be like, wow, Matt Damon, what happened? What? Like, wow, you are not the Martian anymore. He's the creator of this game, not getting any respect. And you can see his boss is kind of a dick to him in real life. And he has a scene where the boss is looking at one of the girls in the episode, and he's like, oh, wow, that's a nice sweater you got there. And she's like, oh, thank you, Mr. Weinstein. Oh. In the game, the dude that's his boss is kind of his right-hand man. But when main guy, Robert Daly, gets pissed, he chokes him. And after he chokes, he gets in this weird position, and he holds it for a long time. And you're like, okay. Like, he got in that position after getting choked real quick, and the captain ends up using him as a footstool, which is just real disrespectful to the dude. Then we got Tommy Wiseau's lollipop in the fridge, and you're like, you have no idea. Like, oh, what a crazy story you got going on here, Robert. We're kind of noticing as the story progresses, when Robert leaves the game, it shows it from the new girl's point of view, and she is like, what? Why are you guys playing along? And they're like, trust me, just play along, have some vodka, because one of the girls in there is like, no, you need to sit down and have a drink. You are not going to believe this shit. And it reminded me of the cookie episode from the White Christmas that John Hamm was in, also a great episode. So they're kind of like cookies in there. They can understand, like, hey, there's some bullshit going on. There's a scene where Robert Daly comes back, and the main girl is like, no, I'm not going to do that. And he's like, well, how about I take your face? And she no face, just like blank, and she's like choking though because she can't breathe. And he's like, yeah, you won't die. You're just gonna sit there in agony for a while. How's that sound? And she's like, well, I guess I'll kind of play along. So there's scenes where she starts playing along a little bit, and he was like, well, let's go down to this planet. They all transport down to this planet using, very similar transport, like teleportation system. And he pulls out his little beeper, and he starts scanning around, and he's like, breathable atmosphere. I'm like, damn, you didn't check before you left? You just get there and start choking, and you're like, oh, shit. They start encountering, you see the bad guy, and you're like, oh, because the bad guy's there at the beginning, but you can't really tell who he is in context. But he's another asshole at the office. So they start battling the guy, and he's like, whoa, face my arachnajax, and this like big spider looking thing comes out, and the main guy's like, oh wait a second, my pizza's here, pauses in the middle of the fight and just goes and gets his pizza, and everyone else is just standing around like and like even the arachnajax, which is apparently a girl, Jillian, who we never get to see Jillian, but like he just turned her into that. And the arachnajax is like, oh, God damn it, I'm just trying to get done with this shit. The main bad guy like has this huge gun, just over the top anime style gun, and he's just like, oh God, this launcher's heavy as shit. And so that was really really funny. And I gotta say, I mean, this episode was definitely the funniest Black Mirror episode, hands down. And it was very natural. And so at the end of their mission, it's traditional for the main guy to kiss all the women. And when he tries to kiss the new girl, she smacks the fuck out of him. And while they're singing, the number 2 in command, who's his boss in real life, they all sing like, so he's a jolly good fellow, and he's a so say oh my fuck is what he says right when and God, it was hilarious. And he's like, whatever, I'll let this one pass, and leaves. So now the characters are talking within the game, and you start exploring a little bit more. Apparently they don't have any genitals, and there's a hilarious scene where the boss, who's also the number 2, is smacking his crotch, but you just hear skin smacks, and it was really funny. Apparently, yeah, there's no genitals in Space Fleet. I mean, I guess we'll have to wait till Space Wars in order to see some genitals. And apparently this was not well liked by the main woman, who says, the quote I had to write it down because it was so outrageous when I heard it. I didn't want to forget it. Stealing my pussy is the red fucking line. So he comes back, and they had tried to send a message to her real counterpart, who the real counterpart asked the real Robert Daly, hey, did you try to send me a message through the game? And he was like, no. And so he's pissed, goes in the game, and is like, what the hell's going on? The main girl's like, I promise it was just me. And he's like, oh, I believe you. Well, other girl, you're getting turned into some hideous spider scorpion. And just fucked her up and took her to the brig. And it's a real funny background scene where they're taking her out of the main cabin, and the new arachna spider thing smacks the fuck out of her head on the ceiling. And it was just really like a small thing. And apparently they see a wormhole, which ends up being the new patch to the game, saying, oh, that's our way out, but it's over a parsec away. So apparently parsecs are still a unit of measurement in this universe. And what I really liked about this episode is I thought it was going to be all humor. However, the number 2 in command says, we can't leave. And when you really go into it, he explains, I tried not to play along with his game, but he got my kid's DNA. Apparently the real version had brought his son into work, had a lollipop, and that was Tommy's lollipop in the fridge. And he created him using the DNA in the game and shot him out of an airlock. And you're like, oh my God. Like, and he just said, I'll do it every day. I'll kill him in horrendous ways right in front of him every day. And it just really broke him. And I was just like, oh, wow. Okay, Black Mirror, you're getting in my feels here. This is a little heavy. And he ends up kind of coming on board. And there's this weird, awkward scene where the main woman in real life is sitting there, and one of the other people that's in the game, she's walking by her, throws an orange at her head, and is like, hey, what's up? And you're like, what the fuck? Like, is this corporate America? Like, so they create the plan to go to the wormhole, and you don't really know what the plan is until it starts going into effect. Daly comes back in the game, and the main girl, her name is Cole, she was like, hey, why don't you come to this planet with me? We'll go alone. And he's like, well, if you suggest. And like, she was real into character, and I was like, this is obviously a trap. I don't know why he's like, oh, well, I finally broke her very easily. So they go to the planet, and her whole plan is to get the omnicorder, which allows them to utilize the ship, and they're going to fly it into the wormhole. She sent this real like obscure like plan to her main self to go to Daly's apartment, get Tommy lollipop in order that he wouldn't be able to create another Tommy, and then order a pizza to get him distracted, but in the game. So it was like a pause so they could get the omnicorder to do, and it ends up working. It ends up, they finally get the omnicorder, they go into the ship, and then Daly's like, he finally realizes what happens, and he's like, oh, you motherfuckers, I'm gonna come get that ass. And he's like, I'm gonna turn you guys inside out, but you're gonna be living, I'll keep you in glass jars so you'll never die. I'm like, god damn, like I couldn't even imagine. They start heading towards the wormhole, and then Daly was in a small ship that he had found on the planet that they were exploring. They end up making it to the wormhole, and Daly's stuck there. And you're like, wow, okay, well, they planned on going to the wormhole to die, because they couldn't die. They were just kind of digital avatars that were just subject to the control of Daly. Then it shows them, and they're not dead. And they are on like a futuristic next generation version of Starfleet. Everyone's there, and then it shows that they've gone into the main game, into the main MMORPG, and not just his mod. And Daly was still stuck in the mod. Well, it shows Daly, and apparently that had glitched out of his game, and he's still in the game mentally, but the game closes, and it closes on him, and dude's dead. Like, dude's sit there, like, brain dead. And I was like, oh, shit, okay. Someone got to die in Black Mirror episode, right? That's pretty much the end of the episode. But then it shows a little tidbit where the next generation type crew gets approached by Gamer 691. And I was like, oh, of course, there has to be something like that. And you hear a voice come over, and he's like, got anything to trade, or are we just going to blow each other? And I was like, man, I know that voice. It is Aaron Paul. Breaking Bad star Aaron Paul voicing like, oh man, fuck y'all, I'm going to blow y'all up. And I'm like, it was perfect gamer commentary. It's exactly what you hear in games. Just toxic shit. But it was hilarious. Great episode. One of my top 5 favorite Black Mirror episodes, even top 3 maybe. It was just a fantastic one. Hilarious throughout. Tons of parody of Star Trek and of real life. So I thought it was a really interesting balance there. So this is the first episode of Black Mirror season 4. I'm going to do the rest of the episodes as I watch them. So if you like this, go ahead and give it a like. You can subscribe to my stuff. I'm going to keep updating pretty much on a daily basis, hopefully with videos and content. So if you